Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk with somebody from Milford, one of the special people. And what I mean by special is somebody who not only has an opinion, but is willing to get up and make his opinion work. We've got a lot of good people in Milford, but we have a select few that are not only willing to get up in public and voice their opinion, but then are willing to work to make it happen. And there's no more noble cause than our schools. Because as I've always said, by the time you hit high school, I'm lucky to get 2 hours a day with my kids when they came home, and school gets 6 to 8. So I was always jealous. So why don't we start with an introduction? Willie?
Sure. My name is Willie Vazquez. Live in Milford, been in Milford for last 12 years. I have 3 kids in the Milford school district. I know a lot of people pride themselves on, being a longtime Milford resident. I pride myself on being a Milford resident and trying to build a long lasting legacy in this community and establish my roots. I come from a family that's grown up in Massachusetts. I graduated from Clinton High School in 1996. I went to Bridgewater State University, where I met my beautiful wife. And she is a longtime Mass resident from Somerset, Massachusetts, who comes from a Portuguese immigrant family. We consider ourselves, longtime residents of, Massachusetts community. And, I learned a lot of the things about giving back to the community from my father. My father was a Vietnam vet. He did 2 tours in Vietnam in the Navy. And he, cared a lot about this country and cared a lot about the community. He gave back a lot to Clinton, Massachusetts. He was honored by Jim McGovern, by the Massachusetts House of Representatives for all the community work that he's done. So we do have a long history in my family of giving back to the community. And what I want to do is, give back to Milford, because I do care about this community. I do care about my children, and I do care about the school system. So what I hope today is to highlight my 3 biggest concerns that I see within the school system. That's 1, the local contribution to the budget hasn't been increased in 17 years. It's been virtually flat. Number 2, I think we need to put a sense of urgency on either renovating or rebuilding Stacy Middle School and the high school. And 3, I'm looking to provide, again, a sense of urgency to the school committee to accomplish these goals, because I think we are a little bit behind.
Well, now, Willie, you've been here 12 years. That seems like a long time.
Excuse me?
You've been in Milford 12 years. That seems like a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time. And, my experience has been great, when I'm running for school committee, I want to highlight that my concerns aren't with the teachers, Al. I think the teachers are tremendous. When you look at the statistics of the teachers in Milford on the Department of Education website, you'll see that our teachers have more tenure and experience than the average teachers than the local districts around here. My experiences, for example, my son, has some issues, and, Lisa Burns was great to work with and establish programs for my son. We've had the same kindergarten teacher for all my 3 kids, Mrs. DeMeglio. She is an amazing educator, an amazing person. My son's teacher this year, Mrs. Andrews, is fantastic. So again, I think we have world-class educators. I think they do tremendous with the resources that they're given. My concern, again, is with the lack of support in funding from the local contribution for the town. Our facilities are aging and they need immediate attention. And again, I want to provide that voice for the parents and the sense of urgency that's needed to accomplish these things.
Well, we always ask our political shows the same question. Willie, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, yeah, just to repeat the things that I said, I think that, you should vote for me for those 3 reasons. If you believe that, we need a look into the facilities in Milford, Massachusetts, within our district. Our high school is aging. It still has the same electrical systems that it did when it was first built. There hasn't been a major renovation in that school since 2004. Stacy Middle School has its own issues, and besides, some repair issues, there's a enrollment issue, meaning that there is a lack of space for the amount of kids that are in that school. So if you feel that there needs to be, a plan developed to resolve those issues, then I'm the candidate. Again, I want to highlight to the community that when you look at the budget contribution from the town, for example, Al, in 2003, the local contribution from the town was $19 million. And in 2001, it was $21 million. That's virtually flat. In 17 years, the town has only raised its contribution to the budget 0.96% in 17 years. So for me, I want to focus on that, bring awareness to the finance committee, bring awareness to the town that this has occurred, so I can provide the resources that we need as a community. And then lastly, I'm going to provide a sense of urgency that I think is needed in the school committee today. So that's why I'm running. I'm passionate about these things. I care about my children's future, especially in the phase of their educational journey that they're in today. And I'm looking to build consensus with the town and accomplish these things.
Now, Willie, I'm confused because the budget of the school has gone up in the last, say, 12 years, $20 million.
Sure. I'm so glad.
It hasn't gone up 20 million. Where'd the money come from?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. So I'm glad you asked that, because that's the heart of the problem, right? So when you look at the way the school systems are funded, Al, they're funded by two sources of income. The first source of income is called Chapter 70 money, and that's created through a foundation's budget. And that budget looks at the needs of the community, right? Special needs kids, ESL kids, first English language learners, things of that nature. And based on the subset of the population of those kids, the state gives us an amount. Right now, about 60% of all kids in Milford are considered high needs children. And because of this, the state is giving us more money. So for example, right, I know you just mentioned that the budget is going up, right? It's gone up 20 million. And that's because the state has recognized the needs of our community. In 2003, for instance.
Why didn't they give us the money then?
Excuse me?
The Chapter 70 money hasn't gone up 20 million.
Yes, it has. That's where you're wrong, Al. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you. So
okay.
in 2000, and if you let me answer the question, then maybe we can go from there. So to answer your question was, how has the budget gone up $20 million, right? The budget has gone up $20 million because in 2003, the state gave us $11 million for Chapter 70. In 2021, in 2021, okay, in 2021, that has increased to 31 million, Al. There's your 20 million. There's your 20 million. 11 million in 2003 to 31 million in 2001. But yet the town contribution has been flat, 19.2 million, right? And this is per the town hall, right? I'm not making this up. This is all available to everyone. 19.2 million contribution for the town in 2003 and only 21 million in 2021. Now think about inflation. Think about the cost of living. Think about property taxes in 17 years going up, assessments going up. The income from this town, the revenue from this town has more than doubled since that time period. But yet the contribution to our schools has remained flat. So I'm not arguing that the budget hasn't increased. Of course the budget has increased, right? That's factual information. But we need to peel the layers of the onions back and ask, why is it increasing now? And it's not increasing because the town is increasing its proportionate share of the revenue to the budget. It's increasing because the state has recognized that our community has needs. Those needs are based on the fact that 60% of our children are high needs. And we as a community have not been keeping up with the allocations from the state. So does that answer your question, Adam?
It does, but the numbers don't jive with what we've been told at the FinCom.
What you've been told in FinCom, I know you're in the finance committee, so this is part of the reason I'm running, because I need to build bridges with you, people in your group. And I don't know if someone's not giving you the full picture. What they're showing you is, hey, Al, the school budget has gone up. That's factually correct. But the next question is, why is it going up? It's not going up because the revenues in town are increased, or not the revenues, the contribution from the town is going up. It's going up because the state is giving us more money. In fact, Al, and this is available at the town hall, the contribution from the town went down from 2021 to 2020. The contribution from the town pre-COVID was 23.2 million, okay? That's what the town gave as its contribution to the budget. In 2021, that went down to 21.5 million. Think about that for a second.
I am, but I'm going through the budget in my mind,
Okay.
and I remember healthcare going up.
Healthcare is on a separate budget. Healthcare is on the budget from the town.
No.
Yes.
You can't do that.
You're mixing two budgets, Al. You're mixing, and I have it. You sent this to me, this is a great conversation because you sent me that, right?
Yes, but
you sent me that, and those are the fixed costs of Milford that are not part of the school committee's budget that they are responsible for. So what you just mentioned, healthcare. The healthcare budget is picked up by the town, and in fact, that part of the budget has increased 28%.
Right.
28%. So now you're taking the money that the state has given us to create programs, right? The state has given us more money for high needs children to create programs to help them because they're higher needs. They cost more money. But we're taking that money and funding the growth of our fixed costs because they've gone up 28%. That's a fact. That's the sheet that you sent me.
That's absolutely on the money. But when we look at, when you say the town hasn't increased its contribution,
Hasn't.
well then, who paid for the extra health care?
Okay, you're trying to mix oil and vinegar together, right? So
No,
you're
sir.
taking, yes, sir, because the healthcare part of the budget is not part of the school committee's budget. The $52 million that the school committee is responsible should be to go to the children of this town. And what you're saying is this other budget that the town is responsible for, the healthcare, is going up. So we need to fund that with the money that the state has given us. That is what you're saying right now, sir, on
Yes,
this channel.
just like I'm saying, the money
So
we
you think that's right. You think that is right, that the state creates a budget based on the needs of the children, right? That's what you're saying. You think it's right that the state creates a budget based on the needs of the children to help create programs for those children. Again, 60% of the children in Milford, Massachusetts are classified as high needs. Did you know that, Al?
Yes.
60%. Okay.
Yes,
So
because
now you're saying we're going to take that money from the state and put it towards healthcare costs. And the costs are this, right? The largest costs are from the sheet that you sent me, that you gave me from, I think it was Zach Thomas, who is the town, right? It's an overall increase in budget since 2016. These fixed costs have gone up from 10 million to 14.9 million. Okay, and healthcare has gone up 30% in that time. Retirement appropriation has gone up 22%. Again, that's not what the intended money of Chapter 7 was. And that's on a separate line item in a different part of the budget, and you're taking them and mixing them together.
Why are they?
Excuse me?
Why do you think they're separate?
Well, that's the way you guys created it. I don't,
Right.
That's why I'm trying to get into the school committee so I can figure out what's going on. Because if you factor in, do you know what inflation is, Al, right? You know what inflation is? Okay, so if you take $19 million and you factor in inflation, right? 2003 numbers, and factor in inflation, the school contribution should be around $27 million. That's if you factor in just inflation, Al, but you guys aren't even close to that. You guys aren't even close to that. And in fact, in 16 years, go ahead.
The school budget has been going up 3.5% to 5%.
Why?
Every year.
Okay, why is that? Let's answer your question. Why is that, Al?
Because that's
Why
what
is
we
it-
can afford to raise it.
But why? What's the cost that are increasing that budget? It's not. It's
Salary, 80% of
okay.
it.
So here's another fact for you. Okay. So because we're agreeing with these things. Okay. So now when you look at this year's school budget request, right, which I have in front of me right now. Okay. So right now they're in the school system, right? The school system of Milford, the district, has 4 open spots for special education teachers, right? And these 4 open spots are just to get into compliance. So we're not even in English language learner compliance per the state. We have 4 open spots. Why? Because they didn't have the budget last year to hire them. Why? Because we haven't increased our contribution to the budget. The state's giving us the money, but we're taking that money and spending it on the fixed costs.
But what we were told by the state is before this reorganization this year,
Yeah.
their formula said 47% of total expense. Now, candidly, it's a shell game to say the schools don't own their health care because their employees need health care. How about Woodland School. Does the mortgage on Woodland School count? Or do the buildings not count?
Well, again, no, it doesn't count because that is not the mortgage on Woodland. Okay,
Yeah.
was an investment by the town. All right, they took out a structured note for that, and that should be paid for through the revenues of the community, not by a line item by the school budget. That's not how it works out. You're trying to lump everything that you can into the school cost and say that's the cost, but that's not how it
Why
works.
does the state demand we submit a total cost at the end of the year on what we spend per student?
Well, that's a good question. From my understanding is that there's a minimum amount that you need to spend.
Net school spending.
And that's a minimum. And that's what we're doing. We are spending the minimum. You're saying, what's the minimum? Let's spend that. That's what you guys are doing. Yep.
Well, we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, we're going to have to agree to disagree.
When I think of what we put into the school, overall,
okay,
round numbers, $65,725,000 is what we're putting into the school last year.
No, that's wrong. That is what is that? You're taking the state's money. What did Milford put into the schools last year? Should be the question I'm asking you out. How much did Milford of that budget? How much did Milford contribute? Do you know that?
I'd have to look it up, but
you're on the finance committee though. You should know this.
Not off the top of my head because I don't.
I'll tell you what it was. It was 21 million. And do you know what that amount was in 2003? 19 million. Those are facts. So the budget is increasing. You're taking credit for the budget going up. That's what you're doing. You're making a blanket statement out saying the budget just went up from 2003, 30 million to 2021, 70, 55, whatever numbers you're throwing out. But let's peel the layers of the onion back. Who's funding it? And the state right now is funding 61% of Milford's budget. Think about that.
Well, they say they're funding 47. Okay.
No, I mean, I have the numbers. I'll be more than happy to post them.
I'm happy to go through them with you.
Here's another stat for you. Do you know?
Disagree on the fact that the highway department plows the school parking lots.
What does the highway department plowing the school parking lot have to do with creating programs for high needs children, Al?
But that's the difference. You're saying that Chapter 70 is only for creating programs.
I'm saying
gives us that money and says this pays for 47% of your net school spending, of all the spending you do. So
I get what you're saying, and you're trying to move, and as viewers will listen to this, you're trying to move into line item expenses when I'm trying to call out the elephant in the room, which is factual numbers. The town of Milford has not proportionally increased its contribution to the budget. That's fact. Okay. You cannot debate that with me.
Let's move on, because we're going to debate all night the fact that when we spend $3 million on a mortgage, you're saying it doesn't count.
You're trying to get into individual line item expenses, and I'm talking big picture here, okay? And the big picture is that out of the budget, right, the finance committee in Milford, Massachusetts for the last 17 years, has not allocated its contribution. People in the town can get the 2022 budget, okay? It's page 72, it's on there. It shows you a list of everything for the last 17 years, okay? And there's certain numbers on there that I think are pretty illuminating. I'm gonna keep going until you stop me. Ready?
Eliminate expenses. Then you're absolutely right. If I could say healthcare doesn't count, mortgage don't count.
That's not how the school. This is from the town now. This is from the town. It has it right here. They're not breaking it up the way you are, right? The way you're breaking it up is not the way that the school budget breaks it up, okay? And what I'm telling you, right? And this isn't. I've spoken to a lot of people. I've spoken to the person who handles the budget for the school. I've reached out to a lot of people, and they all say the same thing. Right now, there is a disconnect between the way you're saying you're committing to the revenue or the school budget and actually what's happened. And I'd love to sit down with you and show you the information in person.
The whole show.
Sure. We can move on.
I got to pay a bill. And Zach, by law, our chief financial guy, every year has to declare what we spent on education.
And you're taking two budgets, taking two separate budgets, lumping them together and magically saying the budget went up 4%. But when you peel the layers of the onion, that 4% increase is coming from the state and not from the town. And that's what's happening. So
let's do this because I'm happy to go through it with you.
Yeah, I'd love to. That's why I'm running. Vote for me. Transparency, accountability.
Who doesn't need healthcare money and all? That's cool.
I never said that. Now you're putting words in my mouth, Al. I never said that. Why would I say no one needs healthcare?
Doesn't count for the school. How does it get paid?
No. You're trying to pull a Ponzi scheme, not a Ponzi scheme. You're trying to do a shell game of move one budget item to another. The fact is the school committee controls the operating budget. You know this, I know this. The operating budget is made up of two revenue sources, Al. Chapter 70 money that comes from the state and local contributions, period. That is, and I apologize about my dog barking. She's just as fired up as I am about this. And the revenue is made up from two sources, Chapter 70 and contributions from the town that's primarily generated from property taxes, okay? Over the last 17 years, the state has gone from 11 million to 31 million. Milford has only contributed 19 million in 2003 to 21, 1% increase in 17 years. Those are the numbers. I'll be more than happy to share them. I'll post them afterwards.
I'd love to have you come into the budget room.
I'd love to. I'd love to talk to anyone and advocate for our town. Do you know property taxes went up 2.3% last year, Al? Do you know property taxes went up 2.3% last year in town? Yeah. Okay, so think about that. As a property owner, my property taxes went up 2.3%. But not one of those dollars that I'm paying extra went to the school budget.
Yet the school budget went up 4.9%.
Exactly, because the state went from giving us $27 million in 2020 to 31 million. So they gave us $4 more million, and there's your 4%.
And I'll check the Chapter 70 money, but fiscal year 15, the school budget has gone up. That's the operating budget, not counting the rest.
No one's arguing. I'm not arguing that, Al. I'm not arguing the budget has gone up.
Chapter 70 going up 3 to 5% a year.
Yeah, more in some cases, more. Well, so that's what this is a good learning lesson. A good learning lesson here. Hopefully you take that out because. Go ahead. Next question.
We talk about challenges. Now, obviously, you believe that you mentioned the operating budget, facilities. What was the third biggest challenge you see?
Well, I think it's just a sense of urgency in the from the school committee. For example, 16 years or 17 years, I keep saying the budget has been flat, right? So why hasn't the school committee, who's responsible for creating the budget, pushed back on the finance committee? And Al, I want to build coalition with the finance committee. I want to find consensus, build bridges. But at the end of the day, this is a democracy. And if that consensus can't be bridged, then you put it to the town vote and let the town meeting members vote on that budget. So, I think I'm going to provide a little sense of urgency when it comes to the finances and the fiscal responsibility of this community in the school district. Secondly is our facilities. Yeah, I did mention that. Do you know there was a feasibility report on the buildings done in 2018? In April 2018, the New England Council for School Committees did a feasibility report. And they recommended that we either replace or significantly renovate both Stacy Middle and the high school, okay? And the next step would be to file a statement of intent and conduct a feasibility report. But no one's even asked the finance committee to pay for to raise the funds for the $1 million, right? To ask for the feasibility report. It's been 3 years. Children in Stacy Middle School can't even wear their backpacks when they walk through those hallways. Okay, and it takes about 8 to 10 years to build a school. Okay. It takes, right now there's a condo community being built in Milford, Mass. that I think is going to increase, the housing units by 300 to 400 in town. Think about the children. It's going to add maybe an additional 100 to 200 kids to our district. And they can't even wear backpacks in Stacy Middle School right now because there's not enough space. So for me, that's why urgency matters to me. Results matter to me and accountability matter out.
The minute we finish locking down Woodland, we put $1 million away in our stabilization account. And I got asked, why are we doing that? I said, there's a school coming. And they said, when? I said, about 8 years. That's when the high school could be renovated, could be made new. I doubt it would be made new. But
that was their first, but that was their 8 years to parents who have kids in the school system is a long time to wait. They'd be out of the school system if you're, in 6th grade. So, that's, to me, that's why urgency matters. So, there's things that we could do immediately.
Like?
Well, I think like taking a look at how we can alleviate some of the space needs in Stacy, right? There's extra space at the high school, right? There's talk that maybe you could possibly house the 8th graders at the high school, right? I don't have all the answers, right? This is where you have to lean on the experts. You have to find, consensus. You build a coalition to get these things done. You listen to the superintendents, the teachers, the building administrators. But what you need to do is you need to make people aware that people in this community are scared to send their kids to Stacy right now. I mean, have you listened to, people speak at the school committee meetings recently? Have you listened to the moms that, show up every night and, every Thursday to speak? And I want to be a voice for them. And I want to provide a sense of urgency because my kids are in the school system today, not in 8 years out.
But what can we do? I mean, you ask a question about why isn't there $1 million study being done? Sure. I can tell you why I answered it, because you don't do it 7 years ahead, because it'll be outdated by the time you get there. Now,
I think that's a poor, no offense, I think that's a answer that lacks urgency, right? That answer is someone who is on their toes.
Let's just
sure. Again, this is great. I mean, I'm sure there's you just said that you appropriated $1 million in the budget, so we can ask for that. Again, if you don't want to give the funds for that, we could take it to a town meeting vote. There's ways to do it. Again, I'm not trying to sit here and spell every one of them out, but go ahead.
$1 is nothing. We could come up with that in a heartbeat.
Or you just
okay? No,
you just flipped.
I did not flip. Yeah. What I said is you don't spend $1 million 7 years before you're going to do the work because it's outdated.
We need to do the work before. So you're under the assumption that we're not going to build a school in 7 years. What I'm going to tell this community is that we can build it faster than 7 years. We can provide a sense of urgency. Our kids need it. Our community needs it. We have 2 buildings that were deemed, in poor condition by this report.
3.
I mean, 3. Okay.
Oriole.
Okay. Well, there you go. And you want to wait 8 years? That's great.
No, I don't.
You just said that.
No.
You said.
I believe we have to wait because the SBIR, okay, the school funding committee was not going to appropriate for us to do the high school. Is going to be 150 to 200 million. If we go out in the next year or 2, 4 years and say we're just going to do it, then we got to pay the whole thing. I don't know that the town will buy on to paying the whole thing.
And again, I think that you're painting a worst case scenario as paying for the whole thing. I think that we could file the statement of, well, because again, there's a process to get reimbursed from the state, and we need to file a statement of intent. We need to do a feasibility study. Yes. And we haven't done that, Al. In 3 years, we haven't started that process. That's the fact. That's the fact. So that's the urgency I'm talking about. 3 years gone by, we have gone by, and we haven't even done first phase of trying to, start looking into building or renovating these schools. And then we could always put it to the, that's the beauty about a democracy. The people always have a right to decide what's best for this community, and they could always vote for it.
Absolutely. I just don't believe that the people in the town.
You're one man in a town of, 28,000 people.
You're absolutely right. But I also worry about the people in the town who have to pay the taxes. And to do 2 schools within 5 years, 10 years, you're talking about $350, $400 million.
And that's why I read the report from the New England Council for School Committee. And they gave a whole host of options, right? We don't have to necessarily build 2 schools. The foundation of Stacy, its shell is very good from what I hear. It's just, there's some system things that, from infrastructure, mechanical things that could be improved. But the things that are going on in Stacy are more from an enrollment situation. There's too many kids in the size of that school. So one of the suggestions from the report was to build a new school with an eighth grade in a separate wing. And now what that would do would alleviate the space issue that currently exists in Stacy, right? So again, there's a lot of options that, I don't think we have time for to discuss, but, we don't have to settle on, hey, it's going to take 200 million in 8 years. So let's just slow play this. I just don't believe in that. That's not how I've, become successful in my life. That's not how I teach my kids.
If you bring forward ideas to expedite, if you could bring forward an idea to expedite it, I'd be right behind you.
Okay.
I believe today.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I believe today that we're going to renovate the high school. Okay. And that's going to cause us to add an entire wing. Okay. And then renovate it.
So why would we, who's deciding that? Who decides that? How do you know that?
They have to have a feasibility study.
So but how do you just said that they're going to just do the renovation without even a feasibility study?
I believe that we will not build a new high school because a new high school will be 250 plus million, and we'll lose the pool, and we'll lose the auditorium, and we have to put it out.
Al, you don't know all those things, that what we will lose and what we won't lose without the feasibility study, number one. Number two is you would rather have a pool than have a 21st century high school, and we could allocate as a community an extra couple $1 million to build a brand new pool. That doesn't make sense to me. We could have a state-of-the-art facility, okay? A 21st century facility built for the children of this school to give them a legacy, an impacting legacy. But yet we care about an auditorium and a pool. I mean, and to what you're saying to me is the cost of it are too much of a burden to even think outside the box of how to make this happen for this community.
No.
And what I'm gonna do is I promise the community to look into it. I think our kids deserve a new high school. I think our kids deserve to take some of the space issues or the enrollment issues that exist at Stacy, whether it's taking the 8th graders out and putting them in the high school. We need to think outside the box as a community. Right now, per the Department of Education, we are ranked as moderate progress 49% out. That's for the state, moderate progress 49%, which is at the lower end of being good, So what does that mean? It means we need to do better as a community. We need to invest in better ways as a community. This has nothing to do with the teachers, nothing. The teachers are amazing. They're doing amazing things with the resources that we give them. This starts at the top. This starts at the top. And I promise to be a voice for the community. I promise to illuminate the fact that our local contributions have an increase in 17 years to the local town budget. And I promise to provide a sense of urgency to figure it out with the powers that be, with the specialists, with the experts, whatever it is. There's a lot of ideas out there that we could listen to and try to find a common ground solution that makes sense for this community and build a 21st century school.
Willie, I go right. Okay, in the 20 years of doing this with schools, has me totally confused. But the steps you're telling me, I'm being told haven't changed. So I'm kind of stuck because I don't believe we did this a year ago, 2 years ago, when somebody floated the idea about renovating the high school. 3 years later, Stacy, 2 years later, the memorial, and it would just about double our taxes. So I don't think that'll get through. I really don't.
I don't need so you're pulling, that's a scare tactic. Double our taxes.
No, it isn't.
Our tax rate is around $15 and 64 cents per every thousand on every home.
$100 for an average home.
So I just think that you're looking at it the wrong way, Al. I think you know better than that. I think that you're doing that to promote fear of property taxes going up. The fact is we're in the lowest interest rate environment ever, right? We can raise a municipal bond, okay, at a very low interest rate. In fact, it'd be an opportune time as a community to do this right now, being that the long-term interest rate market is at its historical low. So if we are going to take out debt, this would be the perfect time to do it. So we don't have to raise taxes, like you're saying, to fund that community. I will argue that the math on that.
I'd love you to show me how we fund this without raising taxes, because I'll be right behind it. If I can get a free school, in a heartbeat.
Al, okay, taxes last year went up. You know that, right?
They go up every year.
Okay, so so we don't want to use some of that money to build a new high school. You just said it. They go up every year. We don't want to use any of it to build a high school.
On a residential home, they went up 2-ish%. Well, so didn't salaries, so didn't everything else. It's not like we banked all that money.
Again, this is where I'm having issues with your accounting. You're taking all the fixed cost increase for the town, using the aid money that we get to invest into the children and using it to offset that while not increasing our allocation from a community standpoint. Again, we are investing in our children in $2,003. That's fact. And I'd love to meet you wherever you want to meet you. I'll go to the town hall and show you this. I'd love to show you this.
Until we have an understanding of where the money comes from and that budget that you're talking about, I know a little bit about it because I helped split it out 12 years ago to help the school deal with special needs kids. So when you say we're combining.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you're saying to me when you say the budget has increased 4%, is what you're doing is you're taking the operating budget, which the school committee is responsible for, the $52 million, and then you're adding the fixed cost budget that the town pays for, which is around 14.9 million, and then you're combining them together and saying the budget's going up. But the reality is the amount of money that the town is contributing to the operating budget, that goes to teachers, that goes to supplies, okay? That goes to a whole host of different things that benefit the children. We as a community have not increased that share.
I'll buy on that if all Chapter 70 money had to do is with programs and it had nothing to do with buildings, maintenance, all the other healthcare. Yeah, I could point.
You're taking my point and saying something else. Black or white, very black or white. The town has not increased its proportionate share of its contribution to the school budget. That's it.
Let's just leave it. We'll agree to disagree.
So you disagree with that, though? You disagree with the town 100%?
100%, because I believe teachers' health care is a school expense. I believe buildings are a school investment. If we're not investing in buildings, why are we, if it's not for the betterment of the schools, why are we doing it?
You're missing my point. No one's saying that we're not doing that. We are doing that. Those costs have gone up, but we're paying for it with money that the state is giving us. That's what I'm saying, and that's what you're missing out. You know that. So I'm not arguing that. I believe in healthcare. I believe in everything that you just said, and it has been increasing, but it's being paid for by the incremental increase of state money and not money from the town.
Let's take a fundamental question.
Yeah.
Are we giving our kids a good education in Milford?
Are we giving our kids? Did you ask all those other candidates that question?
Exactly.
You did. Okay. You didn't, number one, because you had 10 preset questions and that was not one of the questions that you asked. But I'll answer it, right? So I think the teachers in Milford are giving my children an amazing education, okay? But I think there is some areas for improvement in the facilities. I think that, there's parents that are afraid, again, to send their kids to Stacy Middle School for a whole host of reasons. I think there's a lack of urgency in the community. I also think that, the way COVID was handled could have been handled a little bit differently in terms of the shifting schedules and everything that went on. So, I think that's a loaded question because I think, overall, my kids, I think, are getting a great education. If you look at the Massachusetts state rankings of public schools, they're better than most states out there. but that's relative thinking, and I'm not a relative person. I want to go right into, what my children are going through in Milford and the needs that exist in the community. And we need to invest better than we have been.
Well, that's all. I'll agree with you there. I think our kids get a good education.
Yeah.
Because with the other candidates, I also brought out that I don't believe the school committee is the judge of that. I think the colleges that accept our kids, and our kids are getting into Ivy League schools. I felt very good that my oldest daughter got into every school she applied to.
It's awesome. Congratulations.
And that was because of Milford High.
Sure.
I mean, I only applied to 2 schools. 1974, when I graduated Milford High, I was the first one out of that building,
Nice.
the first class. And we haven't done enough to keep that high school up. We really need to do renovation. And we need to increase the classes as far as what we offer kids. That's my opinion.
Where's that money going to come from, Al?
Well, again, the 5%
Ah.
every year, I thought that's where it was going.
No, it's not. That's where I hope I've taught you something tonight, because that 5% increase is not going to those areas. That's why Milford High School hasn't been rehabilitated since 2004, actually. So that's the last major renovation. Now, listen, the person who runs the facilities, he came and spoke at the school committee meeting. And, and one thing he did mention was that, he takes a lot of pride in what he does. And I was very impressed with the gentleman. And, the facilities people in this town do a great job trying to keep up with the buildings and, provide our children with a safe school. And, again, it's just these buildings are old and they haven't been invested in. And some of the things that are needed just can't be, picked up in at Home Depot. Stacy Middle School has a fire alarm system that they don't make anymore. They're going into the black market for parts. The high school has its original plumbing and heating system that malfunctions all the time. So not every classroom gets heat. So when you asked me earlier, do I think our kids are getting a great education? Absolutely. But do I think our kids need heat in every single classroom in the high school? Yeah. Absolutely. So that's the difference in my point of view as well.
Like the fire alarm. We agree that fire alarm is out of date. That's why it's on the capital budget coming in front of the capital committee to be replaced outside the school budget. That would be money that comes from the town. And see, you're right. I count all of that as an investment in the schools.
Yeah.
So, when we're going to come up with $1 million+ of capital, to me, that's school spending, but it's not operational. And there I'll agree with you.
Yeah, it's different. It's different. It's the schools are an investment for the community. If you look at the the town budget, they that's listed as a resource. It's not the right word that I want to use, but it's an asset. That's the word I wanted to use. It's listed as an asset. So that's why it's not included in the budget, because the town literally can deduct its investments that it makes into that school off the revenue that it makes. So you take a tax credit or a tax debit because of the way you handle the accounting. So that's why it's on a different balance sheet.
Well, again, when we get together, I'll show you where we put together.
Yeah.
But
sure. My dad was an accountant, My dad was an accountant, taught me well.
I'm not. I'm just a poor kid from Milford who grew up in here. But the last 20 years has taught me a lot about the budget, why we set things up. Now, one of the things that comes up all the time, our school system, for 19 years, I used to rib Kevin about the fact that we added 1 kid per year to our schools. Because in 1974, we graduated 222. 3 years ago, we graduated 260. So that's 40 extra kids. And then for the last 2-3 years, we've added like 300 kids.
Right.
I'm surprised the schools aren't busting at the seams.
Yeah.
Now, the question becomes, what do you say to parents? What do we do? Because even if we got the money today, we wouldn't have a school for years.
Sure.
What ideas could we use to make it easier?
Sure. I think an idea that, could happen immediately from the people that I talked to is there's space at the high school right now to house the 8th grade class in Stacy. So, there's a wing of administrative offices as well in the high school that you could relocate, and you could create an area that you could alleviate the space or the enrollment issues that you described. That is not renovating, or I'm sorry, that is not rebuilding or creating a brand new building. That could be done through, allocation of resources from the town's budget to the high school. So that's something that could probably be done in the course of a year or two. Again, if we provided a sense of urgency and an immediate need and an immediate focus for the community around that. I believe that, if you put your mind to it, Al, that you can accomplish it. I grew up, very humble. My father, worked very hard, was a high school dropout, got his GED, went to the University of San Juan, Puerto Rico, graduated and got a job working for the Environmental Protection Agency for over 30 years. I lived in apartments a lot of my life. It wasn't until we were much older that we bought our first home, which was, a very big accomplishment for my family. So I understand the value of hard work. I understand the value of, waking up every morning and putting on those boots and, trying to put food on the table for your family and appreciating, the hard work that people put into their lives. So, I think education is very important. My family taught me that from the very beginning is, education is the way that, people can get out of the situations that they're in. And when you look at our community and the demographics that exist today, they're very eye-opening. It's something like 40% of the children in Milford are economically disadvantaged. I was at a school committee meeting again last week, and they mentioned that we had 70 kids, homeless kids in Milford. Do you know that, Al? 70 homeless kids in Milford.
I was amazed when we
70
talked
homeless kids. And how, yeah.
getting subsidized breakfast and lunch.
Right.
Because
but they can't get that today now, right? Because of the way, the COVID situation has closed access to those.
No, Carla takes care of them somehow. I don't know if you know the Olivas.
Yeah.
Okay. Carla's down doing the food at the high school.
Oh, awesome.
I asked that question that if the schools are closed, like in the summer, just because they're not in school doesn't mean the kids still aren't hungry in the morning.
I know, but that's you paint a picture that, sounds nice, but the reality is those kids that are economically disadvantaged, unfortunately, don't have the ability to get to that school to pick up that food. A lot of times those parents are working. A lot of times those are single, mother households. So, just because someone says, hey, I can provide food doesn't mean that everyone can access it. They still need to get a ride or find transportation to those areas. And that's a very big issue in this community. So, I appreciate people, stepping up from a community standpoint. But again, the needs of this, the student population that we have is tremendous. And the way that we're going to grow our scores and our test results, I think is properly investing in the schools the way we should have been doing a long time ago. And, I'm going to keep harping on it, Al, and I'm going to, I'd love to, maybe grab lunch with you someday or, set up a meeting, but, we haven't been allocating properly to the portion of the operating budget from a town perspective. I'm not arguing with you that the budget is going up, yes, right? But those are the fixed costs that are going up and not the investments that our children need.
But what do you do? Where do you get the money? You're saying reallocate.
Sure. Okay. So we just said last year, the taxes went up 2.3%.
Yes.
Right. Why didn't any of that go to contribute to the school operating budget?
Again, the numbers I have show the operating budget went up 4.9%.
That's not, no, the numbers you have include the incentives budget and the operating budget mixed together.
Right. Yes. And the healthcare budget and everything
right.
else.
So it's not. So you just answered my question. It's not. The operating budget hasn't gone up.
But then where
1% in 17 years, 0.96%.
Where do we get the money? Well, let's not deal with money only.
I just answered that question for you, Al. We just need to look at internally as a community and say what's happening to the current. Where's the money going today? So property values, right? Assessments, right? So that's another way. You don't have to raise taxes, right? Another way to generate income is through assessments, right? Your property, the value of your house goes up, you pay more in taxes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
What's an
So,
assessment? Isn't that a tax?
no, an assessment is the value that the town assesses to your house, right? So the way property taxes work, there's a fixed dollar amount per every thousand that you
Yeah.
pay, right? So if your house today is worth 500,000, right, and it's $1 on every thousand, right, you're going to pay $500, right, on property taxes. Now, if the town assesses your house for 600,000, right, I didn't raise taxes as a community. The tax rate stayed the same, but the town raised your assessment. Now that your property is valued higher from the town, and now I'm going to have to go from paying 500 to 600. And that's happening in today's environment because property values have been going up tremendously over the last 10 years. And that is why, if you look at the revenue from the town in 2003 was $39 million. And these are tax revenues. And in 2017, which is the last one I have on my sheet here, was $67 million. So see, it's going up, but not the local contribution to the budget. It's remained flat. So that's the conversation I want to have because I don't have those answers. I don't know why when I'm allocating to the school. You have those answers. You're on the finance committee.
Now, when we look at the programs we offer, how are we doing in setting our kids up? Because everybody always talks about test scores, that our test scores are much lower than the towns around us.
Sure.
What's your opinion on that?
Sure. I think that's a two-part question, right? You mentioned test scores, and then what was the first part again? I apologize.
Programs. We're setting up programs.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So that's a two-part question: test scores and programs. Okay.
Pick test scores. Start there.
Okay. So test scores, again. So when we look at the test scores, they're below state averages. No one can argue that. You can go on the Department of Education, right? Why? Well, we have a significant population of children that are English language learners, okay? No one can argue that. That's factual, right? But yet, as a community, we are not investing properly to support those kids. And how can I prove that? Well, when we look at the budget for the last 2 years, the contribution from the town went down. It went down from $23 million in 2020 to $21 million in 2021, okay? Because of that, it created an inability for us to hire things like special education teachers, English language learners teacher. Right now, we need 2 English language learner teachers in Woodland just to be compliant. We need 1 English language learner at Stacy just to be compliant. We need 1 English language teacher at the high school. So why are our test scores low? Because we have a high population of English language learners, and we have a lot of vacancies that make us non-compliant when it comes to English language learners, and we're not investing properly into those children. The state is giving us the money. They've increased the allocation from $9 million in 2003 to $31 million. But we as a community are not contributing and raising our local contribution amount. Now, when it comes to the programs, we have great programs in this community, right? Think about all the people that, come into Milford to access those programs. When I go, take my son to, whether it's baseball, whether it's wrestling programs, basketball programs, I'm always amazed at all the people from surrounding communities that come into Milford to access our programs. But again, this isn't, to me about the programs. It isn't about the teachers. It's about the 3 things that I started, today off with. That's a lack of investments from the town in terms of local contribution to the budget. That's an investment, I believe, into the facilities, primarily Stacy and high school. And lastly, just to provide a sense of urgency and be a voice to all the moms and dads that I've spoken with recently.
Yeah, and you've got me 2-3 years ago. We had an influx of kids from the border down Texas way. And the school came up to us and we voted an increase of $500,000 to their operational budget. And I'm just curious where that went.
Yeah, me too.
We voted it. It came out of Milford revenue And it made sense because the school committee came to us and said, look, you add this many kids, we need teachers.
Yeah.
But if the contribution stayed flat, I'm just wondering where my $500,000 went. Something to look at.
Sure. Like I said, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just really passionate about this. I'd love to, that's what I promise to this community, is to dig into everything, be transparent, and work with the people who handle these things. And that's you and your group of established cohorts to the finance committee.
I told you, I love your compassion. Anybody who's compassionate for my 4,500 kids, my hat is off to them. I just want to make sure that we're talking the same number.
Sure.
That's
my stuff is all available at the town hall, all available on the departmentofelducation.com. And a lot of it is accessible through the proposed school budget for fiscal year 2022.
Yeah, we haven't seen the new proposed budget yet. We've seen proposals, but we haven't seen the final.
Yeah.
And I keep getting my numbers from our town finance director. So
yeah, I'd love to peel that up. He gave you a lump sum number, and I think, Al, I think what you need to do is kind of just peel the layers of the onion back. Because I think, his info was right. The budget is going up. But when you see where it's going up, it's not on the operating budget. It's not. It's been flat.
Well, I love the catch. Anybody who is willing to put that much energy into helping our kids has a vote, that should be listened to.
Well,
now,
I appreciate that.
Down to the last question. I'm from Milford, Willie. Why should I vote for you?
Sure. I hope, over the last hour, you've seen, the passion and the dedication and the energy that I bring to this subject matter. I have, a beautiful wife that's amazing, that, is helping support me through this endeavor. I've got 3 amazing children that I tremendously care for and concerned about, them going through the Milford school system. And I want the best for them. And not just for them, but for every child in this community. We have an amazing community with a long history of immigrants and, making success stories out of a lot of different things. And I'm just looking for your vote in the school committee election. I will focus on the 3 things that I started the day off with, and that's, trying to increase the local contribution to the budget from the local revenues of the town. I want to put a focus on looking at renovating or rebuilding Stacy and the middle school, not in 8 years, but immediately. And then ultimately just being a voice for all the moms and dads that I've reached out to, and, providing a sense of urgency to the needs that I have laid out over the last, hour here today. So Al, I truly appreciate the time that you're giving me today. I thank all the candidates for, stepping up and running for school committee. But I think that I, am the one candidate that can provide change, positive change that this community needs. So vote for me April 6th for school committee. Willie Wilfredo Vazquez. Thank you very much.
And as always, loyal viewer, I've always promised I'd never ask you to vote for any specific candidate, but I'll beg you to vote. I mean, Willie shows compassion towards our kids. He's got the right mindset of do the best we can for our kids. But he's one special person. He's a person who got an idea and didn't sit back. He's willing to get up and try and make it happen. And my hat is tipped to anybody who will get up and put their time and energy in. So as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home, been running all my life just